Hey everyone, this is Rich, Plant-Based Coaches Podcast. I'm here today with my co-host, Dr. Suzanne Fox, and we're honored to have my good friend Anthony Masiello. I've been aware of his story for probably 8, 9 years now. He has an incredible weight loss journey, and I wanted to share with my audience because him and I feel like our story is so similar. You could really relate to a lot of what he's going to present to you. So, Anthony, can you tell us what year you first started your weight loss journey?
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. And it's super excited to be here with you and Dr. Fox because, we have been community friends for a long time. And I know, Richard, we have the chance to meet in person a few times at different events around New York and even in Connecticut. And it's been fantastic. And yeah, and Dr. Fox, I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah,
together sometime soon. We got to make it happen.
exactly. Yeah. I love what you guys are doing. So thanks for having me on and sharing and inviting me to share. So yeah, I mean, my stories is, I mean, it goes way back, but the short of it is, I grew up obese, and what you asked me, what kind of sparked me to go on this journey. But at age 33, I was pretty unhealthy, and I didn't realize it. But I had a kind of a rude awakening when I applied for a 20-year term life insurance policy when my wife was pregnant with our second son, and I was denied. And I was 33 years old. And here I am. I had this company who I turned over all my medical records to, right? And all of my information to. They had it all. They crunched it right through a computer, right? And it came out that you shouldn't insure this person. So I took that as like kind of like a death sentence, that this company with all my data analyzed it and said, this guy's not going to live for 20 years. You don't want to insure this guy. And it scared the heck out of me. Now, obesity was one of the problems, but there were other factors involved as well. But obesity is the one that was always at the front of my mind because that's
Sure.
the one that I could see in the mirror and that I had dealt with since I was a child.
Wow.
Were you like me? I was in kind of denial for years that I wasn't as heavy as I was. Yeah.
I don't think so. In
Uh,
fact, I was probably the opposite. I was hyper aware
Oh,
and hyper aware to the point where, I'm tall also, like I know you are as well, Richard. I'm 6'4". I weighed like 360 something pounds, and I was cautious when I would approach people. I thought people might think I was, just some, I don't know, like a mean guy, or like, a big overweight guy, or like a sloppy guy, or someone who didn't care about themselves. I was more leaning towards like the self-conscious side of not really liking who I was and not really thinking that other people would like me either.
yeah, I get that. So what kind of foods were you eating that led you to become, 360 pounds?
Well, this might sound ironic to some people right now, but I was vegetarian at the time. And what happened was in 1994, I think it was actually January 24th of 1994, I gave up eating meat and drinking alcohol. And I
wow.
was 21 years old at the time. And I said, I'm not going to drink any alcohol. I'm not going to eat any meat. And I'm going to do that for 3 months because I wanted to try to lose weight and I wanted to just feel better. I mean, I was,
Yeah.
truthfully, I'll share, I was drinking a lot, just partying on weekends with friends and stuff like that. And I was eating poorly. I was eating sausage and peppers and onion sandwiches. I'm here in New Jersey, and the pizza is incredible, and you can get like loaded up with all these like these Italian meats and stuff like that. So I was eating. So that at that time I gave up meat, but what I really did was there weren't any vegetarian products. This was in 1994.
Right.
Really, we had one health food store, and I could get one packet of veggie burgers. The brand was Yeeves. And when you took them out of the package, like they stuck to your fingers and like stuff like it was really hard to cook. It was like this gooey, blobby stuff. And they also had hot dogs. But like so I didn't eat those often at all. What I normally did was I made stir fry. I bought a wok, probably off of late night TV when they were
Yeah.
advertising wok commercials.
I remember
You
those.
know,
Yeah.
and I bought some oil and I bought vegetables and I was walking vegetables and making rice. and eating rice and vegetables. And I started to feel better pretty quickly. So much so that by the time I got to the end of those 3 months, I didn't go back to eating meat or to drinking alcohol. And even to this day, I still have not. I've not had meat or alcohol since before that date in January 1994. But where I went wrong was I slowly figured out all of the vegetarian products that I could eat that would lead me to be this 33-year-old person who is so unhealthy that he couldn't get a 20-year life insurance policy because they didn't think he was going to live to 53. And those things included like Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and my favorite flavor
My weakness too. Yeah.
was Chubby Hubby. And I wouldn't even share with my wife because I told her she already had a Chubby Hubby. She didn't need any. It was my ice cream. This is my Chubby Hubby. But and I say that in funny, but cheese pizza or even the broccoli pizza, even the white broccoli pizza that we can get around here, like it's still loaded up with high calorie processed foods, tons of salt, not a lot of broccoli, not a lot of vegetables. So I was eating that kind of a vegetarian diet, and I did like sweets. I would have cakes and pies and all of those things that allowed me to be just as unhealthy, maybe even more unhealthy than I was previously, even though I was eating a vegetarian diet.
Right. I get it.
What was the catalyst to make you start being a vegetarian and giving up alcohol? What was the
It's really funny because my mom doesn't remember this, but when I graduated high school, I moved out of my mom's house. I moved in with my dad. My mom's in North Carolina. My dad's here in New Jersey. And I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm just not feeling good. Like I'm tired all the time. I'm dragging. I get these headaches and stuff. And she said, why don't you just try giving up meat and not drinking for a little while? And she really doesn't remember saying that. But it was just a suggestion that came out of nowhere. And so it was very much so for health and for what I thought it might do for me. It wasn't necessarily for the animals, but I very quickly became proud of the fact that now I wasn't eating flesh from animals.
Yeah. And I was going to ask the same question, what led you to become vegetarian, but yeah, because we didn't have Google back then. Yeah.
We didn't, I was just barely I was probably getting a whole bunch of AOL CDs in the mail around that.
I remember those.
Yeah, because I became a vegetarian in 1997. So it's kind of like maybe in the 90s, it was kind of sort of a thing that was kind of happening. I don't know. It was kind of,
yeah. And there was, and as we now later know, the pioneers, even in the whole food plant-based space, they were around and active back then. They didn't have the voice that they have today.
Exactly. So can you tell us about what led you to do well, obviously your physical is because you wanted to get life insurance, but can you tell us what it was like to go to the doctor? Had you been going to the doctor regularly before that?
Yeah, so I avoided the doctor at all costs. I would always try not to go to the doctor. But where my mini checkups would be when I was in college, I would always donate blood. And I forget why I donated blood, if it was because my friends were doing it. My friends were doing it. Or maybe they also gave us like a lunch voucher so that we could get like a free lunch in the cafeteria if we donated blood or something like that. But anyway, I always donated blood. And at that time, they were writing on these forms and they were carbon copies in between. So they would, you would get a report, but they would always check your iron. They always check your blood pressure, and I forget what else they might check. On the little machine when you're going, and they would give you the green copy back, and in the corner it said your mini physical, right? And they would always tell me that my blood pressure was pretty high. Do I see a doctor about that? And I said,
I have the same kind of story. It was in health class in high school. The teacher said, just kind of worried, it's a little high for my age.
They always told me it was high. They said I should go see a doctor, but I would just tell them I don't want to or something. But then even the worst part is that more than half the time I would get a letter in the mail about, I don't know, maybe a month later after I donated, maybe even a little bit longer. And they would send me a letter that said they were unable to use my blood. And they always said, thank you for making your donation. We really appreciate you, but but for whatever reason, and I don't even remember the reason, I didn't save any of these letters, but they weren't able to use my blood. So I used to feel good about myself when I didn't get the letter. I was like,
Yeah, I
oh,
don't blame you.
I'm doing fine, you know. But when I would donate blood and I would get that letter, but it still didn't really motivate me to go to the doctor. And I guess maybe I felt a little bit invincible, or like I was okay. And I was big, but I was also active. Like I would skateboard in the summertime, I would snowboard in the winter, and I was, which meant basically I was essentially kind of like pushing, but almost like running and jumping up and down curbs and stuff in the city and going to the skateboard park. And I was doing all these things. I mean, not when I was 360 pounds, but when I was donating the blood at this time, in my college years in the mid 90s. And I was, I wouldn't say I was like athletic, but I was not a sedentary person, and I would go for long walks. Like I didn't have a car. I lived in Baltimore City. And if I wanted to go to my friend's house, who was, a half-hour walk away, I would just walk there. Or I would ride my bicycle, or I would take my skateboard. Like I wasn't using taxi cabs, and I wasn't like, using the buses and stuff. So I felt like I was probably okay, but for some reason they would often tell me they couldn't use my blood. So that's the closest, I guess, to going to the doctor that I was dealing with at the time.
Yep.
And
So
then
what
when
was
I
that
got
like?
older, I went for checkups, but only when I had to. And
Mm,
and then often I was having an overweight doctor tell me that I needed to lose weight.
Pretty-
Well, like, it's impossible, because if you can't do it, if you're telling me, like, how am I
Yeah,
supposed to do that?
yeah.
And it's not for lack of trying.
Oh,
I
Right.
tried a lot.
Sure, sure. What was that like though when you finally went to that physical?
Again, it was usually related to something like going for insurance, or
Well, yeah,
or
I meant for that insurance physical.
that's what I mean. I didn't really go to the doctor like for regular
Oh,
physical
okay,
annual physicals. I
okay,
went when I took a new job and they required me to get a physical. I would go for a physical. They didn't really tell you a whole bunch. They basically just tell the company like if it passed their criteria for hiring or
I
something.
see, I
And I
see.
think they were probably more, you know, yeah, I don't know what they were looking for, in fact. But I didn't really go otherwise until my blood pressure got really dangerously high, and someone said you have to go to the doctor, you have to go to get on medication. And and I would go to the doctor and I would say, look, I don't want to go on medication, give me some time and let me try to figure this out. And I would go back to see them, whatever it was, whatever they let me do, 4 months or 6 months later, and it didn't get any better, and maybe it got worse. And eventually my doctor here, at that point in time, now I'm probably like 30 years old, 29, 30, and that doctor did put me on blood pressure medication.
oh, wow, okay.
And I did feel better,
Yeah,
I felt a little bit better. And then I started going to the doctor because I also had migraine headaches. And I always just dealt with them, which usually meant going into a dark room or loading up on like Excedrin or something like that, and just trying to, get myself through it. But I started asking about, what could you do for my headaches? So I kind of shifted my mind, is why I'm trying to explain that. And I
hmm.
got to the point where I started to appreciate the advice that doctors could give to me.
Is that what led you to Dr. Furman eventually? Probably a few
Um,
years after that.
No, so at this time I was denied my 20-year term life insurance policy, and I went to see my regular doctor, and I told them that I was denied and that I had to figure this out. And they kind of helped me, and in the kindest way possible. They were like, well, maybe some of this is because you're not following up on your treatments. Let's get you documented. Like I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, but I never wanted the CPAP machine, so I didn't take it.
Right.
So maybe on the insurance company side, they're like, oh, denied treatment for like, the CPAP machine, or for, what's it called when you fall asleep in the middle of the night?
Sleep apnea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Denied treatment for sleep apnea. No, so they started working me with that. I still never took the CPAP machine, but while I was seeing my doctor and she was helping me to kind of, close up any loose ends and to do that, I just started Googling. And again, I was still very focused on weight loss because I thought that was the root of my problems. So I started Googling for vegetarian weight loss because at this time now it's like 2005,
Yep.
2005 going into 2006, and everything to lose weight involved eating a lot of meat and almost nothing else. It was they called it Atkins at the time. It's not much different from keto or
No.
paleo that's going on today, but it's the same kind of concept. But again, by that point, I was so proud of being vegetarian that I didn't want to go and start eating meat. So when I was Googling for vegetarian weight loss, Dr. Furman's book, Eat to Live, popped up on Amazon. Again, this is early 2006. And
Yeah.
on the front cover of the picture, it says fast and sustained weight loss. And I was like, that sounds awesome. But then before I bought it, I started reading about the book, and then I started reading the reviews. And it was really interesting to me. No one talked about weight loss in the reviews. Everyone talked about getting healthy. And they talked about getting well, and they talked about getting off medications, and they talked about feeling better than they ever had before. And I was like, well, maybe I don't want to change my diet for weight loss. Maybe I want to change my diet to get healthy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was something that was completely foreign to me. I mean, I didn't know that diet
Exactly.
controlled health. I knew that diet controlled weight, right? Or that diet influenced weight. But that's how I was introduced to Dr. Furman's work.
Yeah.
So I
That's the same. That's the same thing that resonated with me too.
the
Yeah. It really was an important message. But I didn't become aware of them until much later than you.
well, so then I bought the book and I just started doing exactly what it said. And which as you all know, you know, tons of greens, you know, or vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, and seeds,
Yep.
and almost nothing else.
Yeah.
So I started with focusing on adding those things to my diet. I started eating as much vegetables as I could, as much fruit as I could, and I started making sure I had beans every day, making sure I had salads every day. And I maybe rightfully, wrongfully so at the time, if I wanted to snack on something, I would snack on nuts or fruit.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And I let that displace the pizza and the other things over time. But every day I woke up and I said, I want to eat more fruit and more vegetables today than I did yesterday. And in the beginning, what that looked like is I never used to eat breakfast. But when I went to work early in the morning, and when the cafeteria opened, they had this big cold bar that has all this chopped fruit on it.
Oh,
So
nice.
I said, okay, I'm going to have fruit for breakfast every day.
Yep.
And literally, it wasn't fruit with oatmeal. It wasn't fruit with nuts. It wasn't fruit. It was just fruit. And it would be chopped melons or chopped pineapple or chopped, you know, sometimes I put blueberries out there, and I feel like I made out on those days because I would fill my container with blueberries, and, you know, they weighed it, and then I paid just by the weight. So I started adding foods to my diet. And that was
Nice.
the first time I ever thought about doing that. It was always about restricting before that. You know, it was always about, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. No more pizza would be a rule that I would make. And I would break that rule within a week or two. But eating more fruits and eating more vegetables, you know, I could literally, on my way home from work, I had like a 1 hour commute. I could stop by at Trader Joe's and grab a bag of those cut and peeled carrots, you know, those baby
Yep.
carrots or whatever. And I could drive home and I could mindlessly eat those carrots, you know, for an hour as I'm driving through traffic. And I think that whole entire 1 pound bag of carrots is like 130 calories. You know,
Yes.
and imagine the vitamin C and the vitamin A and all the, you know, fiber and
Exactly.
the nutrients that come from eating that. When previously I would get a bag of peanut M&Ms,
Oh,
Yep.
right?
I'm the
And
same way. You know, I
and I'd
used to
eat
do
the
with
peanut M&Ms from the
yeah.
vending machine on the way home, the same
Yeah.
thing. So I just switched it. But
Yeah, you
it was
substitute.
never about I'm not allowed to have M&Ms. It was never about I'm not allowed to have pizza anymore. It's never about those things. It was more about I need to bulk up on this stuff. And that stuff just kind of faded. I didn't probably give up having pizza with cheese on it for probably almost a year. I didn't give it up until it was no longer important to me.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it felt important to me. Now, I was eating a tiny fraction of pizza with cheese on it compared to what I used to eat. But but it enabled me to lose weight because I was eating so many fruits and vegetables. I didn't have room for much else to eat.
That's what we tell people to do. We tell them to bulk up on vegetables and fruits and, try to boost their intake of stuff like that, like from the produce department. That's what's really helpful.
Exactly. And we can talk about, how it's lower calorie and it's higher fiber, and that, it has higher water content and all that, stuff. And honestly, sometimes I think we don't really know what it is in fruits and vegetables that give the body this ability to heal, but all we know is that it happens. So
Yep.
I don't try to pretend that it's because it was lower calorie options or because it was higher fiber or any one thing. I just know the formula, and I think this applies, to so many people and so many conditions. Probably not everyone, but if you eat a lot more fruits and vegetables, you will feel a lot better and you'll be a lot healthier. And if you're overweight, becoming more healthy also usually means losing some weight.
Exactly.
If you're not overweight, becoming healthy might mean something else, but it's not that people disappear, if they're a normal healthy weight and they start eating more vegetables, they don't, it's not like they
Yeah, it just levels off. Yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
I remember my mom, I told her, I also read the book Eat to Live, and I was pretty excited to give it a try. And I remember telling her I was going to eat a bag of baby carrots, and she became very alarmed. She said, "Oh my goodness, that cannot be healthy. That cannot be healthy. But we can eat a whole bag of chips. We just can't eat the carrots."
Exactly. I remember being in my kitchen one day and I cut a cantaloupe in half and I got a spoon and I spooned out the seeds into the garbage. And then I just started eating out of the melon. And my friend just couldn't understand that. They're like, "Aren't you going to chop that up and put it in the fridge?" I'm like, "No, I'm just going to eat it." And then when I finished the one half and I was like scraping the peel clean, with my, then I picked up the other half and I ate it. And they're like, "You're eating a whole entire cantaloupe?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I looked it up afterwards because I was like, "Wait, is that dumb?" Like I was like, "Oh, like, did I do something wrong?" So I looked it up. It has just as many calories as like two bananas.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have that many calories. It actually has a surprising amount of protein, along with the good carbohydrates. And then it's got tons of vitamins and other good stuff that we need. And I'm like, I'm proud to eat a whole entire cantaloupe. Like it was
Yeah,
so
exactly. Exactly. One thing I wanted to talk about too, because you didn't mention it yet. I don't think a lot of people are aware that you didn't do any exercise that first year, right? When you were losing the
That's
weight.
right. So let me just give some numbers to this also. So I started following what Dr. Furman writes about Need to Live, like becoming a nutritarian in March of 2006. Okay. I got off most of my medications and really I was on I was taking, Excedrin, and also I had a prescription for headaches. I was taking that, and then I was regularly on 3 blood pressure medications. And my
Wow.
blood pressure was still a little bit high, even on the
Wow.
medications. But I got off those like my doctor had me start logging my blood pressure 3 times a day, and she wanted to take me to take 3 readings at each time. So basically 9 readings a day. So when I wake up in the morning,
Else, jeepers, that's really a
That's a
chore.
lot. Yeah.
wasn't that bad. I put on the cuff, I hit the button, I let it do what it says, and I write it down. Then I hit the button again and I write it down. Then I hit the button again and I write it down. Like, so each time it was probably only 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then when I came home from work, I did that again. And then before I went to bed, I did that again. But the point is, it gave her so much information to help me to get off my medications appropriately, because if I would have just went into her office and let her check my blood on the spot, who knows what it is in the morning or the night or the evening,
Yeah.
so she had a really accurate picture, and she told me to do it, so I did exactly what she said.
Smart.
And then she took me off those blood pressure medications in about 4 months. And then
Nice.
I just continued, and then I started, needing the prescription migraine medicine less. And I stopped kind of taking, Excedrin so much. I stopped kind of getting headaches, after a few months, and I continued. So then by December of that year, by December of 2006, I'd lost 90 pounds. So from March to December, I don't know exactly what what that is pounds per month.
Months.
What's that?
It was 9 months.
Yeah, 9 months and 90 pounds. So 10 pounds a month
Wow.
over that for that first 9 months. And you're exactly right, Richard. I did that without doing any exercise. And it's not because I think exercise is bad. It's because I had a newborn and a toddler at home. I commuted an hour each way to work and back, and exercise for the sake of exercise wasn't in my routine. So I didn't try to introduce anything new. But I lost that first 90 pounds without doing any physical activity really at all. I mean, I
Right.
didn't even go for walks around the block. Like I got home, my wife was stressed from being with the kids all day. So like, we were kind of just taking care of ourselves, and then we were getting to bed so I could get up and do it again the next day. But what happened is I started having so much energy, and I talked to a few friends at work, and they were very happy for me. I mean, losing 90 pounds, like people can see that
Oh,
and
yeah.
are happy for you. And my one friend, Mark, he said that he goes to the gym at work in the morning, and that it saves him a lot of time on his commute, because rather than driving in the 7 and 8 o'clock traffic, because I still got to work early, even then, now he drives to work in like the 5 o'clock traffic or 6 o'clock, or like the 5 or 6 o'clock traffic. And he gets to work and he has a whole hour to spend in the gym, and he gets to his desk at the exact same time. Or like something like I had to leave home like a half hour early. I got to spend an hour at the gym, and I still got to my desk at the same time. Because we had
Yeah.
a really nice gym at work that had showers and a locker room and
Nice.
everything you need to do your workout. And then also, so I decided to start running, and that was going to be my exercise. And I went on the treadmill and I started walking basically. And then I would just pump up the speed, and then I would run, and then I would be exhausted in about 20 seconds. And I would slow it down and I would walk. And then as soon as I caught my breath, I would pump it up. And I just kept doing that
Yeah.
until I could run, like until I could run like a quarter mile and then take a break, and then run another quarter mile. And then I could run a half mile. And then I could run a mile, take a break, and run another mile. And then I got to my point where I could run like 3 miles on the treadmill. And I signed up for my first 5K race with the running club at work. And that was just awesome. Like the first one, it was in Morristown, New Jersey. And I was there with some people from work and from all the other companies in the area. It was in the evening, it was after work. And it just felt so cool to be like, I put a number on myself for, maybe the first time since I played soccer as like a kid. And when I say a kid, like second grade,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
and I ran that race, and it was a lot of fun. And that's when I kind of really became hooked on running and adding exercise to my routine.
Nice.
And I continued doing more running throughout the year. And in September of 2007, even though I was doing all this running, I ran my first half marathon. So I just kept running further and further and further and further. And I ran a half marathon, 13.1 miles in September of 2007. So that's just, I don't know what that is, about a year and a half, maybe 20 months after I picked up the book Eat to Live, right? And I ran it in an hour and 47 minutes.
Wow, you did
That's
good.
incredible. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do that today, to be honest, but I was proud of that. And I just have to
Should
say,
be.
it's not just that my body was losing weight, it's that it was really healing, and it was doing amazing things inside that enabled me to basically exceed anything that I ever thought I could have done before. Like walk 13 miles versus, run 13 miles in less than 2 hours. I mean, that was incredible. And
Yeah, definitely.
and even with all that running, so I was doing a lot of running to get myself to the point where I could do that, right, at that half marathon, at that pace. And even with all that running, I continued, my weight loss was still about 8 pounds a month. It never really got any faster. Like, and I think it's probably because I ate more. But I'm really grateful, and I think this is what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I changed my diet before I added exercise, because I didn't, like, when you start a new exercise routine, you get hungry. And when you get hungry, you rely on your habits. When I started my exercise routine, 9 months after changing the way I was eating, my habits were all good. I was already in routine. If I was hungry when I left work, I knew right where to park to get in and out of Trader Joe's faster than anyone else in the store, and to drive home with that bag of carrots, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I would have been hungry when I was first trying to change my eating patterns or my eating habits, like I would have probably went back to some of my old habits. Like maybe I would have said, "Oh, I ran this morning. I can have a bag of M&Ms on the way home."
Yeah, you're right. You're
Like
right. Yeah.
M&Ms were completely out of my life, and they had been out of my life for 9 months. Like I'd never even thought about eating an M&M, or a cookie, or a piece of cake, or a bagel when they brought bagels in. Sometimes people would bring bagels into work in the
Yeah.
morning, and like all that stuff was already out. So no matter how hungry I got, fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, or seeds, like that's what I ate, you know, and and that's why I do think there's some value in figuring out your way of eating, and in building new eating habits before
Definitely.
you start to introduce new strenuous activity that's going to make you hungry and might make food feel like an emergency, right? Because if food feels like an emergency, you're going to rely on your habits, and you're going to go pick up what works, right?
Hmm.
But
Yep.
but by the time, I started to get really, really hungry from all this physical activity, it was a bigger salad, it was more beans, it was, maybe two bananas instead of one, things like that.
Yeah. And I just have a few other questions. You gotta wrap up soon and get back to work. But
Yeah.
one question I had is, well, what does your typical diet look like now?
Now I'm doing something a little bit different now. I'm eating a little bit more simply. So for breakfast, I'm having berries with like hemp seeds and flax seeds and chia seeds. And to me, just to make it really easy, right now it's frozen blueberries. I buy those big bags of Wyans, those 3-pound bags, and I fill a small bowl with blueberries. I stick them in the microwave. I take it out. I add some hemp seeds. I don't really measure it, some chia seeds and some flax seeds, and that's what I have for breakfast. One of the things I learned is that breakfast's job is to make you hungry for lunch. And
Mhm.
and what I mean by that is I don't have to feel stuffed at breakfast. I don't
Right.
have to really feel full. Because if I eat that bowl of berries and stuff around, 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, like, and I'm feeling really hungry by 11:30, like that's great, right? Because around 11:30, I'll start to make something for lunch.
Yep.
My lunch is right now, again, with this new plan I've got going that's keeping things extra simple, is it's always beans and greens and sometimes tofu with it.
Sometimes what?
Tofu.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I cook I don't even do it like on a particular day of the week. Whenever I run out of beans, I cook a huge batch of beans in the Instant Pot, and then I
Yep.
set them in jars, and then I take those beans out and I heat them on the stove. And sometimes I add some cubed tofu in there, maybe even half a block of tofu if I'm really feeling hungry.
Mhm.
And sometimes I add some salsa or some hot sauce to it, just add some seasonings and flavors. And then I'll either have like fresh spinach or fresh kale that I will steam. I usually at lunchtime I usually just steam it right in the microwave. Like I'll take even just fresh spinach or fresh kale, put it in a bowl. I'll pile it up as high as I can so it's like a pyramid. I'll put it in there for a minute or two, but it's like it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
heats.
Down.
And then I take two knives, one in each hand, and I use them like scissors, and I cut it up into little pieces. And then when the beans are hot, I pour the beans on top of that, and then that's what I've been eating for lunch.
Wow,
Nice.
that's a good one.
And and I know it sounds boring, it probably doesn't sound appealing, but like honestly, the beans with salsa, and I can get a low sodium salsa, but I use it generously. I put it into with the
Yeah.
beans, gives it a lot of flavor. And then I cube up the tofu like that. And I don't know if you guys ever ate like beanie weenies when you were a kid, like beans and hot dogs. Like,
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I didn't call it that, but yeah.
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 But like, it not that I'm looking for that, but I just realized that when I get a piece of tofu on my fork with with some beans and some spinach and some salsa, it's actually very satisfying and filling
Yeah,
meal.
definitely.
And then dinner varies. we've got a couple good restaurants around. My wife really likes Thai restaurants, so we can go. We have a local Thai restaurant that has vegan options, and I talked to them. There are two dishes that have very little oil or almost no oil in them. Or sometimes we'll pick up a burrito out. Sometimes we'll get a pizza with no cheese on it, and we'll load it up with veggies. And we have a couple pizza places around here that'll do a whole wheat crust. We have to drive a little bit further, but we can do that. Or sometimes we enjoy cooking like some meals from recipes, or different kind of things. Like right now, in the summertime, it's mostly big salads that I really enjoy. And my salads have things like roasted beets on there, roasted cauliflower, and like they're really hearty salads.
Yeah.
And they're delicious. But now this time of year, I start thinking about more lentil dishes that I like, and stews and things like that at dinner time. But I'm really trying to keep breakfast and lunch simple, mostly because my schedule is kind of crazy with
Yeah.
timing. And it just kind of keeps me from it. It just takes all the decision making out of it, and it's so easy.
I agree.
Yeah.
My last question is kind of a two-part question. First thing I'm wondering is what your typical blood pressure is now. And the second part is the history for this question is every once in a while I'll run into someone, they'll say, don't lose too much weight, even though I've leveled off years ago. And what is your lowest weight now? It just kind of levels off and you are what you are, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll do the blood pressure question. And I took my blood pressure yesterday, and it's usually in like the 10 somethings, like
Yeah.
105, 107, 109, sometimes 111, 114, over something in like either the high 60s to like mid 70s.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
I would say typically that's where it goes. And if I wasn't like feeling like I'm in the hot seat right now, I would go grab my cuff and we could try it now. But who knows what it would be right
No,
now,
I know.
because I
Yeah.
have a little bit of stress going on.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
But and then the weight question, that's a really interesting one. And I was thinking about that a little bit because I knew you wanted to ask about that. And for me, it's really hard to tell. Like quite honestly, right now I'm hovering around 220 pounds. When I was finished losing the weight, and when I said I lost 160 pounds, I was just barely over 200, like maybe 204, 205. So
Yeah.
from up about 15 pounds from where I was back in September of 2007,
Yeah.
right? Just after I ran that half marathon, that's exactly when my weight loss just stopped.
Yeah.
And I changed the way I was eating, but my weight loss did stop. I stayed that 200 pounds. And so now I'm within 15 pounds of that, right? I had gotten down, I was doing a marathon training, and I had a really busy home schedule for a while, and I probably wasn't eating enough, and I got down as low as like 170 something, 180
Oh,
something.
wow. Yeah.
And honestly, I liked myself at 180, but just as honestly, it like I can't maintain. I have not figured out. I won't say I can't. I have not figured out how to maintain any weight under 200 pounds. I would love to be like my just for no other reason. I would like my weight to start with a 1. Like I would love for it to be even 198, 199. If I could step on a scale every time and see a 1, but I have not figured out how to do that without feeling like I'm starving. And
Yeah.
for me to maintain 215 pounds or 220 pounds, like where I kind of fluctuate in that range,
Yeah.
takes zero effort and zero thought at all.
Exactly.
And so when you ask me about ideal weight, even at 198 pounds, my BMI, I think, is 25. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm 6'4", and that's borderline overweight, right? That's just barely in the normal weight.
I know, and I looked on the chart, and I'd have to be like 180 or something. I forgot what the number is, but for me
Wow.
not to be considered, overweight.
Because